Chapter 519, Naming. The golden liquid was cool and refreshing, making Audrey feel as if she was enjoying a delicious ice cream. She then took a sip of champagne. Tiny bubbles of air continuously rose, silently bursting as they brought a tingling sensation with them. Suddenly, her sense of hearing reached out, and she could hear the conversation of the two maids at the end of the corridor, as they lamented at how they had no chance of going to the Hall family's castle and manor in Eastchester County. At this moment, Audrey felt as if she had dissolved into an illusory gas and was rapidly expanding. It filled the entire room, overlapping with a sea formed from everyone's sea of consciousness. Her vision also changed. Everything she saw was abnormally smooth, turning into a mirror that reflected her current appearance. Possessing a beauty described by pure, exquisite, grand, and witty golden scales that were slowly growing out of her exposed skin, her emerald green irises contracted and were dyed in a faint golden color, as if they had turned vertical. Audrey suddenly felt fear from the bottom of her heart when she saw herself like this. She didn't want her wish to become an inhuman monster. With a hum, her mind began to turn into a blur, as if something was slowly and painfully drilling out from the surface of her body. Just then, she heard the gentle voice of her huge golden retriever, Susie. "Don't be afraid, calm down. Don't be afraid, calm down." Audrey recovered her thoughts and tried to get herself into a spectator state. Her undulating emotions quickly calmed down, and her spirit seemed to leave her body. She then looked down at herself like a spectator. Audrey saw the golden scales on the surface of her body visibly recede, and her emerald-like eyes return to normal. It didn't take her long to regain control of her body and understand what beyonder powers were available to a psychiatrist and how they were used. It was so dangerous just now. Audrey raised her hand in fear. Her skin was fair and delicate, completely unlike the abnormal condition she had been in a moment ago. After this incident, she truly understood how terrifying the danger of losing control, which Mr. Fool would occasionally bring up, was. She gained a deep understanding of how difficult it was to go down the beyonder path. Even with the acting method, it was impossible to completely remove the latent risks. At one gathering, Mr. World said that beyonders are a bunch of miserable wretches that are constantly fighting against threats and madness. Previously, I could only understand it literally. Now I can finally feel the weight behind this sentence. Audrey, don't be discouraged, don't be afraid. Father, mother, and brother are still waiting for your protection. With this experience, you won't be frightened by yourself in the future or so easily lose control. You can do it. Audrey clenched her fists and encouraged herself. She calmed down for 2 seconds, walked up to Susie, squatted down, and hugged the golden retriever. As she combed its fur, she put her head against the side of the dog's face and muttered in its warmth, "Thank you, thank you." Susie rubbed against her twice and asked seriously, "Audrey, is this how a psychiatrist feels like?" "I like it very much." Audrey was suddenly at a loss on whether to laugh or cry. She immediately pursed her lips and promised, "Susie, we'll treat each other in the future." "Yes, psychological problems." "Okay, woof," Susie answered happily. It was only now, with Audrey truly recovering, that she was in the mood to examine her own advancement. "My body seems to have become healthier. Although I don't have any obvious muscles, my strength and speed have become much stronger than before. My eyesight has also improved. I can even clearly see items hidden in the dark. My sense of smell is able to distinguish even more subtle smells, and thus being able to grasp a target's truest emotions and thoughts. I finally have beyonder powers in the truest sense of the word. Yes, there's also awe. I can target a single person or apply it to a group of people within a certain range. They'll instantly panic and turn chaotic as though they're facing a dragon. Another is frenzy. It will trigger the emotions and mental state of a target, throwing the target into a frenzy. They'll suffer intense psychological damage and might even cause direct loss of control at times. Another is psychological cue. Through specific methods, words, and a medium, I can cue a target, letting them abide by my arrangements without them realizing it. Or they might strongly abide by a particular promise from the bottom of their hearts. Another is placate, also known as psychoanalysis. I can help Beyonders on the brink of losing control to regain their reason and escape danger. There's a certain chance of failure. The higher my sequence, the more easily it will succeed. It can calm down various psychological instabilities and allow for communication. Another is telepathy. Through mediums like candlelight and extracts, it will put the target in a partially hypnotic state. I'll then be able to directly communicate with their body of heart and mind, just like what Hilbert Alucard did to me. If not for the protection provided by Mr. Fool's angel, then I wouldn't have the means to lie under such situations. Yes, I have to be on guard against such techniques. I can't be fooled by a target, and there should be quite a number of means to achieve this effect. With placate and telepathy, together with certain psychology knowledge, I'll be able to act as a true psychiatrist, the kind that can open a clinic. Audrey's mood rapidly improved. She finally had the feeling that she had matured and become a qualified Beyonder. I'm a mid-sequence Beyonder. There really is a qualitative change. She stood up, lifted her skirt, and walked briskly around in a circle. She quickly discovered that she was still lacking in direct offensive abilities as a psychiatrist. Fortunately, I have this. Audrey stopped in front of the experiment table and opened a plain brown box. Inside the box was a silver mask that could only cover half a face. It was the mystical item that the hanged man had sold her. Audrey picked it up, placed it in her palm, and observed it for a few seconds. Then she extended her spirituality and projected her thoughts just like how she did above the gray fog. She saw the silver mask begin to warp inwards, turning into a hollow, finely patterned, slightly large earring. It might be better to turn it into a necklace, Audrey whispered. Afterward, she tried out the various abilities of this magical item. She was most satisfied with her ability to fine-tune her appearance. It's a pity that other than flame controlling, it doesn't have any other more direct offensive powers. Perhaps I'll need to prepare a revolver, one that has Beyonder effects. Audrey thought with some regret. She quickly collected her emotions and said to the mystical item in her hand with an uplifted tone towards the end, "From today, your name is Lai. The most beautiful Lai-Tilda. City of Generosity, Bayam, 48 Acid Lemon Street, Wind of Azurin." It was raining heavily outside and the wind was raging, but inside the luxurious suite, the fireplace was warm and the environment peaceful. Klein sat in his chair and watched silently as Blazing Danitz dealt with the severe fracture on his left arm. He waited until Danitz was finished binding up his arm with shredded old clothes before asking bluntly, "What treasure?" According to Danitz, it was because of some treasure that Admiral of Blood Center wanted to deal with Vice Admiral Edwina Edwards. The sound of wind and rain came through the window. Danitz took a sip of the Lanty-proof on the table and then gave a bitter, angry laugh. Those assholes who had their brains eaten by zombies. On our last expedition, we found a sunken ship. Although we didn't find anything of great value, we discovered a gigantic black iron key that doesn't look like the kind used by humans. Can you imagine? After being submerged under the sea for so many years, it hasn't rusted at all. "Yes," Klein replied in a concise manner. In a world where extraordinariness and mystery intertwined, what wasn't possible? There were people who could be resurrected from the dead, not to mention others. Danitz choked and paused for 7 or 8 seconds before he knew what to say next. "Perhaps there's a traitor among us, and the news has spread. Countless pirates believe that this is Death's key, a key that can open the treasure trove Death left behind. I thought that this problem would be cleared up very quickly and happily applied for a vacation. In the end, the matter became more complicated. Even Admiral of Blood has joined the ranks of these mad pirates. I'm even beginning to suspect that it's Death's key, a key that can turn one into a true god." "Foolish," Klein calmly gave his evaluation. Whether it was in the divination domain or dealing with deities, he could be considered experienced. Thus, he had his own understanding and confidence in the interpretation of Death's key. He believed that the key was a form of revelation, a symbol. The thing that opened Death's treasure trove was probably not in the shape of a key, but some kind of characteristic, bloodline, or even certain, specified people and their descendants. Danitz was startled for 2 seconds, and then he exclaimed, Your words are exactly the same as Captain's previous comments, and even your expressions are very similar. She suspects that the key belongs to an older era, an era not of humans. Before the cataclysm, this world was still full of giants, dragons, elves, and demonic wolves. The shape of the key indirectly points to one of them. Demonic wolves. Klein suddenly recalled the ravings he often heard during his past advancements. In it, the Phlegria he heard referred to the ancient god, Annihilation Demonic Wolf, a treasure that involves the second epic. He held back his curiosity and switched to calmly saying, "Write down everything that Admiral of Blood has done, including Steel Mavetti and his men." He remembered that Admiral of Blood and his pirate crew were the most notorious groups on the ocean. Their hands were stained with blood as they committed heinous sins. "How can I remember? They aren't beauties like Captain." Danitz threw up his hands. "I can only list the most important things and some of the details that have left an impression on me. Wait, what do you want to do?" Bit by bit, Klein revealed a smile, one that gave Danitz a fright. He said in a deep voice, "If it's appropriate, I want to hunt them."